There's something about water, isn't there? Something that almost compels one to look at it, stare into its depths, mesmerized. It's so alluring. It can be our doom for many reasons, and apparently sometimes for what seems like no good reason at all. Our hosts will tell us about some cases that seem to challenge a mundane explanation. Are they fluke statistical clusters or something more sinister?
Good morning, people of Earth. From the skies to the shores and to all the ships at sea, radio-free humanity is on the air.
Okay, so you've brought us something pretty unsettling to dig into today.
Yeah, it really is. We're looking at these clusters of deaths, young men
Right,
mostly.
often found drowned after being out near bars, nightlife district.
Exactly. And it's been happening in different cities going back, well, a couple of decades now.
It's a disturbing pattern, for sure. And when you start looking into it, this big question pops up, doesn't it?
It really does. Because, on one side, the official line is often tragic.
Simple accidents, yeah. You've got young guys maybe drinking near water. Statistically, sadly, accidents happen.
That's the argument. It's unfortunate, but it's, predictable to an
But
extent.
then you look closer at the cases themselves.
And that's where it gets, kind of creepy. You start seeing these details, these things that just don't quite fit the accident narrative.
Yeah, inconsistencies, right. Things that make you pause and think, wait a minute, is this really just a coincidence?
Or is there something else? Something more sinister? A serial killer? Organized crime? Just something else?
That's the core of it, isn't it? The tension between accident and something else.
And the sources you've gathered are key here. We're mainly drawing from YouTube investigations, the Lore Lodge, the Paranormal Files.
They've focused on specific clusters, right? Pittsburgh, La Crosse in Wisconsin, and Austin, Texas.
Yeah, and they touch on that smiley face killers theory, too, which comes up a lot in these discussions.
Yes, the idea of a network leaving graffiti. We'll get into that.
Definitely.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to unpack what these sources present. Lay out the key facts, the questions, the different angles.
So you can look at the info and, draw your own conclusions without getting totally swamped by all the details.
Exactly. So let's start with Pittsburgh. Seems like a good, if grim, place to begin.
It really is. The case of Dakota James kind of sets the stage. Young guy disappears after a work party.
Right, and then there's that weird part where he's seen on CCTV walking somewhere.
Exactly. And then 40 days later, his body is found in the Ohio River.
And the police ruled it an accidental drowning pretty quickly.
They did, but his family, understandably, just couldn't accept that. They suspected foul play right from the start.
And when you look at the details, you can see why they felt that way, can't you?
Absolutely. Take his blood alcohol content, for instance. When recovered, it was 0.214.
Which sounds high.
It does, but here's the thing. The sources point out BAC can actually increase after death because of, decomposition processes.
Oh, right. So his actual level when he went into the water might have been lower? Maybe like only twice the legal limit?
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes the idea of him being so drunk he just fell in maybe less certain.
And didn't the police hold back some CCTV footage?
That's reported, yes.
Yeah.
Refused to release more footage that might have shown his last movement, which, adds to the question.
Definitely. And then there's the state of his body after 40 days in the river.
It was described as being remarkably well preserved.
Okay.
Just odd.
Very odd. You'd expect significant decomposition after that long, wouldn't you? Even with cold water slowing things down.
You absolutely would. 40 days is a long time. That level of preservation is unusual, and it really makes you question the timeline, the ruling, everything.
And wasn't there FBI involvement? And even the Secret Service.
Yeah, which is really unexpected for what was initially called an accidental drowning.
Why the Secret Service? The source mentioned maybe counterfeiting. Seems like a stretch.
It does seem far-fetched.
Yeah.
The other implication the source suggests is maybe concern about organized crime or even a serial killer.
Which would explain the FBI too, potentially, if they thought it was more than just a local incident.
Exactly. And that creates this real disconnect with the Pittsburgh police sticking to the accident theory.
Different agencies, maybe different information, different concerns. It's weird.
And Dakota's case, sadly, wasn't alone in Pittsburgh. The source highlights this cluster, 5 similar cases between 2011 and 2023.
Okay, let's quickly run through those so people can see the pattern. First up was Jimmy Slack.
Jimmy Slack, yeah. 2011. Last seen at Stage AE, found 6 weeks later in the Ohio River.
And he still had his clothes, wallet, phone, ID on him.
Apparently, yes. Which itself is a bit strange after 6 weeks in the water.
And where was he found? Near where he disappeared.
Only about half a mile away.
Yeah.
Which raises another question.
How was he not found sooner? 6 weeks. With Steelers games happening nearby, search parties out.
Especially with cadaver dogs involved. The dogs didn't hit on that spot initially, which suggests maybe he wasn't there the whole time.
Okay, who's next? Paul Kochu.
Paul Kochu, 2014. He was an ICU nurse, disappeared after a night out.
And found where?
In the Ohio River, but way downstream. Wheeling, West Virginia. That's like 47 miles away.
Wow, 47 miles. And how long was he missing?
4 months. And the details here are even more disturbing.
How so?
He was found nude, except for a wrist watch. And the manner of death was undetermined. He had fractured ribs, a scalp wound, unexplained injuries.
Injuries, so not necessarily just a drowning then.
Right. The ME couldn't say if the injuries happened before or after death. And, how does someone end up nude except for a watch 47 miles downriver?
Yeah, the river stripping clothes off seems unlikely for everything but a watch.
And his estimated BAC at death might have been lower too, further muddying the waters on the accident theory.
So his case has this element of trauma, the others might not. Okay, who else?
Thomas Hughes disappeared 2021 near the river, just blocks from where Paul Kochu was last seen.
Okay.
And Brandon Pfeiffer Davis in 2023, similar vague circumstances found in the river.
So looking at these 5, Dakota James, Jimmy Slack, Paul Kochu, Thomas Hughes, Brandon Pfeiffer Davis, what are the common threads?
Well, the profile is striking, isn't it? All white men, early to mid-20s.
Similar appearance too, short hair, clean shaven, or short beard.
Yeah, and similar height range, roughly 5'8" to 6'2". All found in the 3 rivers, mostly the Ohio.
Last seen near the river trail.
And recovered after generally 1 to 4 months, except Slack at 6 weeks.
And most were out at bars, likely intoxicated.
That's the report, yeah. And 4 of the 5 had to cross a bridge to get home.
So, lots of similarities. Paul Kochu's injuries make his case stand out a bit, but the overall pattern, it's hard to just brush off as coincidence, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Pittsburgh presents this really troubling cluster. Where next?
Let's go to La Crosse, Wisconsin.
La Crosse.
Another place with, unfortunately, a history of drownings in the Mississippi River, often linked to alcohol.
So on the surface, maybe less surprising, but I guess the details tell a different story.
Exactly. Things get weird when you look closer. Take Luke Holman's case in 2006.
What happened there?
Well, there were conflicting stories from a friend he was with who got cited for underage drinking near where Luke was eventually found. And when Luke's body was found in the river, there were reports of head wounds and even suggestions he might have been bound somehow.
Found. Wow. Okay, that's definitely not an accident. And what about water in the lungs? That came up in another La Crosse case, didn't it?
It did, with Todd Gear. The lack of water in his lungs was a big deal, suggesting he maybe died before going up.
And Luke Holman.
The sources don't definitively say, but it's interesting that neither side in the investigations seem to make a point about water being present, which is notable by its absence.
And Luke wasn't the only one in La Crosse, right? There was a whole string of them.
A really disturbing string. 11 young men drowned between 1997 and 2000.
11. Wow. And similar circumstances again?
Very similar. Most happened during the school year, often after nights out at bars on 3rd Street.
And the victim, same kind of profile.
Yeah, pretty much. Ages 18 to 28, generally described as, conventionally attractive guys, and BAC levels often really high, 2 to 4 times the legal limit.
Can you give us a few examples?
Sure. Charles Blatz, 1997, found after 5 days, BAC .31. Tony Shifton, same year, found after 5 days, BAC .23. Nathan Caper, 1998. This one's particularly weird. His hat, wallet, and a citation he'd gotten were found neatly stacked in a park shortly after he vanished.
Neatly stacked? That doesn't sound like someone stumbling drunk.
Not really, does it? He was found 41 days later, BAC .22, likely lower at death. Jeffrey Giese, 1999, BAC .42, very high. Jared Dion, 2004, his hat was found hanging on a post in the park.
Another hat thing.
Yeah. And he was found in the same spot as Luke Homan, BAC .27.
Okay.
Christopher Melanson, 2007, a Marine vet. There was an eyewitness who said he fell or jumped from a bridge, but police were skeptical. BAC .24. Craig Myers, 2010, footprints leading onto the ice where they found him. BAC .19. Shirley Mostine, 2014, BAC .32.
And you mentioned the weird detail about belongings being placed or stacked, like Caper's wallet and Dion's hat.
Yeah, the source highlights that clothing sometimes found placed on poles or neatly stacked. Again, it just feels deliberate, not accidental.
It really feels suspicion, doesn't it? What kinds of theories came out of Crosse?
Well, with that pattern, people started wondering. There was talk of maybe a female killer or killers luring men from the bars.
And didn't they start some kind of safety patrol?
They did. Riverwatch on campus.
Yeah.
Shows you how concerned the community was.
And wasn't there a survivor? Someone who claimed they were drugged?
Yeah. The source mentions a living witness who says they were drugged at a bar and actually woke up in the river.
Wow. That adds a whole other layer.
It certainly does. And then there's this investigator theory, which is pretty out there, talking about chairs within some larger group.
Chairs? What does that mean?
Like positions or roles. The idea being these killings were maybe part of some initiation ritual or, maintaining control within this supposed group.
Okay, that's intense.
And that same investigator talked about the rivermen theory.
Rivermen?
Focusing on the water, the river, the lake. That being the consistent signature, even if the smiley face graffiti wasn't always there.
Mm-hmm.
They even mentioned possible ritual elements, like full moons or holidays.
Good grief. That adds a whole other dimension of creepy. So, Crosse has this long patterned history. What about Austin? That's more recent, right?
Yeah, Austin is where things have really flared up again recently, especially around Lady Bird Lake.
That's the Rainy Street Ripper talk, isn't it?
Exactly. Since July 2022, at least 11 bodies recovered from the lake. Many victims last seen near Rainy Street, the nightlife hub.
And what did the police say there?
They've been very consistent. No connection between the deaths, no foul play suspected, just tragic accidents or suicides.
But 11 bodies in, less than 2 years? That seems like a lot.
It does. And it's worth remembering, Austin had deaths in Lady Bird Lake before this recent cluster too. Between 2008 and 2019, there were others, totaling at least 18 since 2008.
And were there suspicious details in those earlier cases too?
Definitely. Some really stand out. Riyadh Hamid in 2008, found with duct tape over his eyes and mouth, arms and legs bound.
Bound with duct tape. And ruled a suicide. How is that possible?
It's baffling, truly. Then Nazima Habibul, same year, left for the store, car found with keys and purse, she's found in the lake. Martin Gutierrez, 2018, had boozes on his head his friends didn't remember him getting, led to suspicion he was drugged, maybe stalked.
Okay.
And Christian Pugh in 2019, he was found alive, incredibly, after 60 hours near a bridge, injured. Police suggested he just fell.
60 hours. Wow. So the recent cases, less information being released.
That's what the source indicates, yeah. Police releasing minimal details, which fuels the public speculation about a ripper.
Any specific recent cases stand out?
Jason John's case in 2023 is mentioned. A homeless person apparently saw him vomiting and falling in.
Okay, so maybe an accident.
But his tox screen reportedly came back clean, though maybe not tested for GHB or Rohypnol, we don't know. And he had partially digested food in his stomach, which seems weird if he'd just been vomiting violently.
Yeah, that doesn't quite add up. How does the victim profile in Austin compare to Pittsburgh and Crosse?
It's more diverse, actually. While Pittsburgh and Crosse victims were mostly young, white men, the Lady Bird Lake victims have varied more in age, race, and even gender.
So it's harder to pin down a single type in Austin.
Exactly. The source material tries to analyze demographics, but concludes it's difficult to establish a consistent profile beyond, being found in the lake.
The discussion also brings up Chris Jenkins in Minneapolis, doesn't it? Part of the whole smiley face theory.
It does. And that case is significant because police initially called it an accident, but later changed it to homicide.
What changed their minds?
Pressure, inconsistencies. Eyewitnesses said he was beaten, sent dogs, tracked his smell to an employee's car parking spot. Another person at the same bar tested positive for GHB.
So clear signs of foul play emerged.
Yeah. Eventually, there was a confession, apparently a botched mugging. But the key thing is the police chief apologized for the initial assumption of accidental drowning.
Shows that initial rulings aren't always right.
Definitely. And then you have the Brian Schaffer case, mentioned briefly, the guy who walked into a bar on camera and seemingly vanished. Never seen leaving.
That points to a whole other level of sophistication, maybe, if someone can just disappear like that.
It certainly suggests that these disappearances, however they happen, aren't always simple.
So after looking at Pittsburgh, Crosse, Austin, we're back to that fundamental question.
We are. Accident or something more.
The sources we've looked at, they definitely present compelling details, raise serious questions about the official stories in these clusters.
Yeah, you see these themes over and over again, right? Young men, nightlife, water intoxication.
But then, bam, you hit these inconsistencies, the low BACs sometimes, the lack of decomposition, the weird injuries, the conflicting accounts, the neatly stacked belongings.
It's hard to just ignore all that.
And, law enforcement might be skeptical about big theories like the smiley face killer.
And maybe rightly so. It's a huge claim.
But these patterns do keep popping up. Different cities, over years. And families, independent investigators, they're raising valid concerns.
Absolutely. We haven't landed on the definitive answer here, obviously.
Yeah.
The sources themselves offer different takes.
But hopefully laying it all out like this gives you, the listener, a basis for, thinking critically, questioning those easy assumptions.
So what do you think, listening to all this? Are these just awful, tragic coincidences? The statistical result of risky situations?
Or do these patterns, these weird details, suggest something more coordinated, something darker?
And here's maybe a final thought to chew on. Could part of the official reluctance to connect these dots, even within one city, be down to just how massive and complex investigating something like this would be?
The resources needed. It would be huge.
Yeah. It's a really disturbing possibility, isn't it? Definitely something to think more about.
What if there isn't such a normal explanation as our hosts have suggested? Cultures across our world have a long history of folklore about men being lured to a watery grave by unnatural beings. Are those stories really nothing but nonsense? Take mermaids, for example. They were out in the ocean, far from the lakes and rivers, but they were not friendly little Disney princesses. They pulled men down to the depths. Or the sirens. They sang a haunting song and sailors would throw themselves into the water, swimming desperately to reach the sirens until they drowned. The Rhine River in Germany was haunted by the Lorelei, a nymph that sung a hypnotic song, captivating boatmen who crashed their boats in the whitewater rapids. In the Slavic countries, the Rosalka was the spirit of a wronged woman who entangled men in her hair until they drowned. It's all impossible, of course. There's no such thing as nymphs and mermaids, but there is such a thing as apparently inexplicable tragedies happening to young men who, somehow, get too close to the water.
We have some good news about Field Team Bravo. We've received another brief transmission.
Looks like they didn't follow us. We're back in this junction place. I don't know. None of us know which one of these portals go back to Earth. To our Earth, we don't even know if these portals go to other planets or other dimensions. A couple of us don't even want to go back right away. They want to keep exploring. So if y'all get this, keep us in your prayers. Cash is keeping me from going crazy.
Hey there, Lauren. If you see this, I just want you to know that I miss you. We're trying to get home, but this is a chance that'll never come again. We have to check out some of the other worlds. We'll figure this out, honey. I'm pretty sure I remember where we were when we first arrived at this place. There's no more than 3 or 4 portals there. One of them has to go home. We'll be... Oh, okay. Rio, you want to say anything?
Yeah, okay. If anybody gets this message, tell my mom I said she was right. That'll shock her. Maybe the paranormal investigation stuff really was a bad idea. Tell her she gets to say I told you so and I won't even get pissed off. Never mind. I'll tell her myself when I see her again.
Trying to keep things sane here. Ransom's so frustrated. He hates it when he feels like there's nothing he can do to fix things. Our best plan is to pick a portal that looks most Earth-like and most likely to have water. We can get through this if we don't lose our heads.
Thanks for spending some time with us during these great and momentous days. Keep fighting your way toward the light. Good night, and God bless.
Take, and we'll waltz under starlight but all the night shadows collected in his eyes, and the cold, deep darkness revealed all his lies. Oh, my darling little lost one, your daddy comes down by the willows where the river runs. He'll never leave us now, the day